What if the very trash in your backyard could turn into the most beautiful thing you've ever grown? You walk past these items every day: old buckets, broken bottles, scattered stones, and never think twice. But today, we see them differently. Welcome to Verdant Dreams, where small ideas grow into wild, living art. In this video, we're diving deep into creative DIY trash garden ideas that are practical, beautiful, and surprisingly simple. Use the timestamps to jump to the sections you need. And if anything sparks a question or an idea, drop it in the comments. And hey, maybe to you, I'm just another voice behind a screen. But this channel? This video? It's personal. Every like, every comment, every sub, it means something real. You're not just supporting content. You're helping keep a family's dream alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. In the quiet corners of a tiny front yard, where the scent of marigold hangs in the morning air, something simple becomes stunning. Here, rows of once-forgotten glass bottles now bloom again, not with water or wine, but with color, texture, and charm. Each bottle, lovingly hand-painted in delicate hues of coral, lilac, sage, and lemon, stands proud as a sentinel of creativity along the garden border. They're not just bottles anymore. They're petals of a larger flower bed, catching sunlight like stained glass in a chapel of blooms. Between each bottle, a whisper of green moss and a flicker of fallen leaves tells stories of autumn's arrival. Chrysanthemums burst into soft clouds of yellow and white behind them, while asters nod in gentle approval. What once lay discarded behind kitchen doors now guards the delicate hearts of perennials. Bees meander through the air, drawn by the sweet nectar of Japanese anemones and the surprising warmth of bottled glass absorbing the sun. This isn't just upcycling. It's an act of reverence. A way to honor both the earth and the objects we often cast aside. A narrow path winds through this space, edged by the rhythm of glass and flower, light and color. It's a place to pause. A reminder that beauty doesn't demand grandeur or wealth, only attention, intention, and a bit of paint. Children delight at the sparkle of light through tinted glass. Adults smile at the harmony of repurposed trash blending seamlessly with nature. And as the sun sets and golden hour embraces the garden, the bottles reflect back the sky's colors, soft blues, faded rose, and hints of amber, like brushstrokes on a living canvas. In a world that moves too fast, this garden fence is a line drawn slowly, carefully, and with love. Nestled at the edge of a cottage garden, where asters sway and chrysanthemums stretch toward the morning sun, an old clay jug begins to sing. Water spills softly from its curved lip, tracing a path of grace down to its sister jug below, and then again, into a shallow stone basin cradled by blooming fall flowers. This is not a fountain you'd find in city courtyards or manicured estates. No. This is a rustic Kendi water cascade, a creation born from tradition, patience, and a love for things once forgotten. The jugs, simple, terracotta vessels once used to hold water for the home, now become the heartbeat of a peaceful corner in a tiny backyard. Painted with care and only just enough to let their natural character breathe, these Kendi carry time in their cracks and warmth in their clay. As water glides across their surfaces, it whispers stories of old kitchens, village wells, and the hands that once filled them. Around the fountain, sedum autumn joy rises like a crown, its textured blooms catching droplets that splash with the breeze. These linger near marigolds, their wings shimmering beside the cascade's rhythm. Each plant seems to lean toward the sound, drinking from the calm it offers. There is no pump here for drama. No artificial color or grandeur. Just gravity, clay, water, and patience, craft meeting climate in a backyard sanctuary. The jug fountain invites you to sit, breathe, and listen. To notice how the light dances on water. How moss forms on shaded stones. How a simple vessel can carry both memory and magic. In the golden hours of dusk, when the garden glows and the air turns crisp, the water continues its journey, uninterrupted. Children crouch to touch it. Visitors linger longer near it. The jugs, once silent in storage, now speak fluently the language of peace. In a world where beauty is often bought, this small cascade reminds us, sometimes, we only need to remember what we already have, and let it flow. Beneath the shade of blooming marigolds and soft-headed chrysanthemums, a meandering trail winds quietly through the heart of a small front yard. It isn't made from polished bricks or expensive stone. It's born from the forgotten, bits of rubble, broken tiles, river pebbles, and discarded trash rocks, each lovingly gathered, cleaned, and set into place. This is the trash-to-treasure pebble mosaic path, a walkway woven from patience and vision. Each stone, some left in their natural hue and others kissed with pastel paint, becomes part of a larger pattern, swirls, spirals, even floral motifs that dance underfoot. The path is not perfectly straight. It curves like a whisper, inviting guests to follow slowly, to pause, to admire the bloom of anemones hugging its edge or the way asters peek through the fence to greet each visitor. As sunlight filters through the petals above, it plays with the colors below, casting shadows and highlights that shift with the hour. Morning dew makes the stones glisten like tiny jewels. In the afternoon, they warm under the autumn sun. Each rock holds a trace of someone's intention, a chosen spot, a painted edge, a moment of care. Children love to trace it barefoot, feeling the smoothness of the pebbles and imagining they walk on secret fairy trails. Adults admire its charm, struck by how waste became wonder, how the path itself blooms beneath their feet. There is a kind of magic in mosaic work, especially in the garden. It honors the small. It celebrates imperfection. It turns what's broken into something whole again. And in a world so quick to discard, such a path becomes more than just a walkway. It becomes a quiet rebellion, a tribute to beauty reborn. So as autumn leaves begin to fall and nestle among the stones, the mosaic becomes even more alive. Layered, textured, touched by season and soul. It waits, ready to guide the next visitor not just through the garden, but into the heart of its maker's imagination. In a corner where walls once stood bare, something beautiful now climbs, alive, blooming, and full of quiet personality. This is the Ember Bloom Planter Wall, a vertical tapestry woven not from thread, but from buckets. Metal ones. Once rusting in garages or forgotten by garden sheds, now reborn in shades of spring and fall, pastel pinks, mossy greens, seaside blues, warm ochres, each lovingly brushed with care, then filled to the brim with life. It begins with reclaimed wood, weathered but strong, a frame for new growth. Onto it, each painted ember, yes, those humble pails, are bolted, tilted just enough for blooms to cascade. Chrysanthemums puff out in golden clusters. Asters peek with starry eyes. Sedum softens the edges with its velvety, textured leaves. Trails of ivy and thyme spill from the edges like long-forgotten poetry. On cool mornings, the buckets glisten with dew, catching the light like tiny lanterns. On warm afternoons, bees dart between the petals, dancing through the air perfumed with earth and bloom. There's music here, not of instruments, but of water dripping gently, of leaves fluttering in light wind, of birds discovering shelter among the petals. For the tiny patio, this wall becomes a living canvas. It grows with the seasons. It reflects the gardener's soul, layered, reused, blooming where it once withered. There's no rule here. A bucket once used for mopping now cradles anemone. One that once held nails now holds nature. Trash? Not anymore. These embers now glow with meaning. Visitors pause and smile. Some take photos. Others leave inspired. Children point at the bumblebees, delighted by the mix of colors and the gentle chaos of plants growing out in every direction. And when the sun begins to set, and golden light touches the edges of the petals, the planter wall seems to hum. A quiet celebration of what can be made, not bought. What can be grown, not built. What can rise, even from what has been left behind. In a world that often values the new, this wall reminds us, beauty thrives when we see potential in the forgotten. Tucked beneath a wooden pergola, where vines climb and flowers bloom, a quiet gallery sways in the breeze, delicate, whimsical, and entirely unexpected. Here, the forgotten tools of yesterday take center stage. An old watering can hangs beside a rust-free bike gear, both transformed into something poetic. A dented metal ladle becomes a bell. A spade, now painted in soft lavender, dangles beside a wind chime made from spoons and bolts. Together, they form the soul of the chic junkyard pergola corners, an art installation born not in galleries, but in the open air of a backyard. No longer discarded, these fragments of the past now move with purpose. The gentle clink of metal against metal is not harsh, but musical. As light filters through the wooden slats above, shadows dance across the flowers below, anemones, marigolds, asters, all nodding in the wind like approving guests at an outdoor exhibition. Each piece tells a story. That trowel once dug a grandmother's flower bed. That gear turned wheels through rainy seasons. Their edges may be worn, but now they shine, some buffed to brightness, others brushed with color. Painted florals climb old rust-free chains, and tiny leaves etched into tin create lace-like silhouettes. People who pass under this pergola linger. They don't just see metal. They see memory, imagination, rebirth. The setting itself, a corner once overlooked, is now a favorite place to sit with tea, to journal, to dream. Bees buzz near the asters, and birds perch curiously on the pergola beams, perhaps wondering how trash became treasure. It's not about hiding the past. It's about elevating it. About finding beauty not despite imperfection, but because of it. In the soft golden hour, these objects glow, telling tales of use, of time, and now, of transformation. This garden doesn't shout. It sings gently, through flowers and junk, through texture and tone, through a pergola corner reclaimed by purpose. In a quiet farmhouse garden where the mist still kisses the ground at dawn, stones don't just lie, they live. Along the edges of gravel paths and under the embrace of ivy-covered trellises, great hunks of weathered rock have been hollowed, reborn, and filled with life. These are the farmhouse anemone rock planters, where cold stone meets tender bloom. With rough exteriors and soft centers, they cradle beauty like a secret. Each rock, carefully selected for its shape and strength, now hosts delicate white anemones, petals like paper, hearts golden and calm. Around them, the vivid greens of sedum burst like mossy crowns, their textured surfaces catching the light. These aren't ordinary containers. They are earth sculpted by hand and time, returned to purpose with reverence. Beneath an old wooden fence, these planters rest like old friends. They blend, not as decor, but as if they were always meant to be here. Marigolds peek between them. Asters nod from behind. The garden becomes a gallery of contrasts, the permanence of stone, the fleeting bloom of autumn. You hear it, too, this silence. Not empty, but full. The buzz of a bee, the rustle of dry leaves, the creak of a distant gate. And there, the gentle brush of wind across petals that were never supposed to grow from granite. But they do. It's easy to walk past a stone, to see it as just another weight. But here, in this small farmhouse garden, each stone is a vessel of grace. Hollowed with patience, painted only by time, and now filled with color, life, and quiet magic. Visitors pause at these planters. They crouch to touch the rough edge, to feel the warmth of sun-soaked stone, to admire the improbable softness rising from it. Some ask how it was done. Others simply breathe in the moment, one where nature and nurture blend seamlessly. And as evening falls and the anemones fold slightly for rest, the rock holds steady. Still, kind, eternal. This is where trash is never needed. Where the earth offers its own vessels. Where simplicity, humility, and beauty converge in one gentle act, planting life where it wasn't meant to grow, and watching it thrive anyway. Along the edge of a humble garden, where asters stretch toward the sun and marigolds whisper golden secrets to the wind, a row of little creatures watches quietly, joyful, colorful, and lovingly handmade. These are no ordinary animals. They are bottle bunny fence decor, a playful parade of recycled bottles, brought to life with a splash of pastel paint and a spark of imagination. Once tossed aside as trash, these bottles now stand proudly, transformed into cheerful bunny figures that delight children and adults alike. Each bunny bottle wears its own personality. One blushes in soft pink, its ears perked high like it just heard a secret. Another rests in pale blue, its whiskers curling into a gentle smile. Some have hand-painted flowers on their bellies, others a name written in playful script. Their eyes shine with simple joy, catching the sunlight that slips through the autumn canopy. Nestled between chrysanthemums and anemones, these bunnies peek out from the base of the garden fence like quiet guardians of the blooms. The surrounding garden hums with life, bees buzz, leaves flutter, and butterflies linger near the blossoms. But it's the bunnies that catch every eye. Not just for their charm, but for what they represent: creativity, reuse, and a tender kind of fun. In the evenings, soft fairy lights tucked inside some of the bottles begin to glow. The bunnies light up the fence like a trail of enchanted totems, adding warmth to cool twilight hours. It's the kind of magic no factory could manufacture. Only hands full of love and a heart open to playfulness can create. Visitors stop to take photos. Children count the bunnies and give them names. Gardeners smile, remembering how a simple bottle once destined for the bin became something that makes people pause and smile. In this corner of the tiny backyard, where every inch matters and every bloom is precious, joy comes not from expensive decor, but from reinvention. From trash turned into treasure. From a bottle becoming a bunny, and a fence becoming a wonderland. And perhaps, just perhaps, the garden smiles back. When the golden hours of autumn drift across the sky and the last petals of the day begin to fold in rest, something gentle awakens in the quiet corners of the garden, a glow, soft and rhythmic, swaying from the arms of trees. These are the Kendi lantern tree decor, old clay jugs reborn as radiant lanterns, suspended like memories from the branches of a tree that knows the wisdom of the seasons. Each Kendi, once filled with water or tea, now holds light. Their surfaces have been gently washed in white, preserving the texture of terracotta beneath layers of soft, chalky warmth. Star-shaped cutouts scatter across their bellies. Leaf patterns, moons, and flowers let the inner glow spill out in tender fragments. Not blinding. Never harsh. Just warm enough to be seen. Just quiet enough to be felt. They dangle from jute rope, swaying slightly with the wind that carries scents of marigold and dry leaves. Below them, the ground wears a blanket of petals and amber leaf fall. Chrysanthemums stand in reverence. Asters nod slowly. Japanese anemones catch the shadows of the jug lights on their white faces. As evening deepens, the jugs begin to flicker, each one lit with a small, safe LED. No fire here, only peace. Visitors pause beneath the tree, perhaps expecting a story to be told. And truly, one is. These jugs whisper of traditions, of things once broken or unused, now glowing with new purpose. They light the way not with brightness, but with intention. A tree that once stood bare now becomes a lantern bearer, a silent guardian of the garden soul. Children call them fairy lights. Grandparents call them memories. Gardeners call them art. Whatever the name, they are something to look up to. And in that tiny moment, when someone stands beneath them and looks up, not down, they realize even clay, even the ordinary, can become extraordinary when filled with light. In the slimmest of spaces, where a fence meets a flower bed, color quietly rises, not from blooms alone, but from pails once filled with dust, dirt, or dishwater. Here lies the charm of the recycled ember edging for tiny gardens, a playful patchwork of old metal buckets reborn as vibrant garden borders. These pails, once cast aside in the corners of sheds and backyards, now frame life with purpose and painted joy. Half buried into the earth, they stand upright like soldiers in soft armor, lavender, mint, pale coral, powder blue, each color chosen not to stand out, but to blend in with the natural hues of fall blooms. Their sides are decorated with tiny brush strokes, dots, leaves, vines, even names. Some are slightly dented, but in this garden, imperfections are welcome. Behind the pails, chrysanthemums stretch tall, their heads glowing like lanterns. Asters curl with purple elegance. Between the gaps, sedum forms thick cushions of green. And through it all, the pails hold the line, not just functionally, but artistically. They mark the space not with stone or wood, but with story. There's something whimsical about turning a cleaning bucket into a floral pedestal. Something quietly revolutionary. It says, beauty is possible anywhere, even in things we once considered used up. Especially there. Tiny gardens often fight for attention, tucked between houses or hidden behind fences. But with edges like this, even the smallest garden becomes a stage. A colorful curtain for the blooms to rise behind. Visitors always ask, "Where did you get these?" The answer is never a store. It's always a memory, a garage clear-out, a flea market find, a gift from a neighbor. And in that sharing, the garden becomes a mosaic of community too. In the early evening, as the light softens and shadows fall across the metal and marigolds, the pails glow with a warmth no factory finish could replicate. Not just because of the paint, but because they were given a second chance. In this garden, there is no waste, only waiting. There are places that speak softly, not with color or bloom, but with balance, where silence is not emptiness, but invitation. And in one such corner of a tiny backyard, framed by bamboo and framed by peace, the Japanese stone orb meditation corner waits for no one, and welcomes all. Here, recycled stones, once forgotten on the roadside or tossed into rubble, have been chosen, smoothed, and stacked into round, harmonious orbs. Each one rests upon a sea of white gravel, raked with care, marked only by the lines of intention and clarity. The shapes aren't perfect. They don't need to be. Their imperfection is part of the calm. Around them, nature hums gently. Japanese anemones sway with pale grace, their petals like soft breath. Golden chrysanthemums bloom modestly along the edge. Bamboo rustles faintly above, casting thin shadows on gravel and stone. A trickle of water falls rhythmically nearby, offering a sound to anchor wandering minds. This corner, no larger than a garden mat, holds something far greater than its size, a pause. Here, the stone orbs aren't just decoration. They are symbols of grounding, of patience, of time made still. They echo the ancient Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, where beauty lies in the weathered, the worn, the well-used. Where recycled doesn't mean lesser, it means lived. Visitors instinctively slow down when they approach. Some remove their shoes and step gently on the edge of the gravel. Others kneel near the largest orb, resting their thoughts beside its weight. Even children, often so wild in garden spaces, grow quiet here. It is not a corner for tasks. It is a space for letting go. And as the seasons change, the stone remains. Rain smooths it further. Leaves gather and then vanish. But the peace it holds, the moment of presence it offers, remains always available for anyone willing to listen. Not every garden needs flowers. Sometimes, all it takes is stone, placed with heart, to grow something sacred.